YouTube wins. All right. We are actually coming live from London. Do you guys want to have a big wave here? Live from London. And we have here our panel here. We have Simon here, we have Radka, we have Peter, we have Kyron, and we have myself, and we're just taking some questions. So who has the next question you'd like to ask? We have a hand up that came right over from over there. Well, I'm going to move because I am mobile, as I have my phone here as well. So we're going to come over here to the person who is asking the question. And do stand up so we can see you. And your name is?
Hi, I'm Cosm. Just really, my question is, what would you recommend for like people who are more younger and like generally doing like suits at the time? So,
how old are you right now?
I'm 18.
18 years old. Yeah. Awesome. Let's give a round of applause for being here. That's an open question right now, right? So anyone who'd like to take that and any follow-up questions you have as well?
So I remember when I was 18. I would say structure it in a way that you can get paid to learn. This was seriously one of the most beneficial things I learned, and really, that's what exploded my business, was when I figured out that people would come on board with me, they'd pay me, I'd learn and then teach what I learned to them. So whatever you're interested in doing, just figure that out. Build that community around you who are interested in the same thing. See who's willing to learn with you, which is exactly what we did.
How old were you, Kyron, when you were on the on that oil rig and you said, right, enough of this, and I'm
24.
You're 24 years old,
Yeah.
right? Okay.
Yeah.
And then when you made that shift, that was obviously a big deal, but you actually made it, and then you had people investing in you. So when you actually did your first property deals, it wasn't your money; it was their money, but your time, right? And
exactly.
how long did it take for that to happen?
3 months to get the first one.
3 months.
And then it just started exponentially going.
Very good. Anyone else would like to add to that, Radka?
So I'm thinking about this a lot because I have 3 kids, and I think the lesson which is great is how can you create value and monetize it? Because once you learn it, no one can take it away. And before people always, or now many people think, okay, I'll get a job, but then you are paid for your time. But I think it's great if you can learn how you can create value and monetize it, because once I've learned it now, it's really great because I'm not afraid, right? Even if a tire goes bust, like it's okay, right? I can go and I'll do something else because I learned a certain process how to create value. And we had a discussion with my husband whether to give our children or our son pocket money or whether we want him to, learn to create value. So we don't give him pocket money, but we support him on, creating something and selling it, right? And just like learning things. So my son, we were at my parents, they live in the mountains, and he learned to, collect lavender and then put it in little sockets, and then sit by the bridge and sold it, right? And before he wanted to sit in front of our house, but then no one went by, right? And he's like, no one is coming here, right? And I said, yeah, because you need to go where people are. Oh, okay, right? So we took a table like this, and it was me with the table and him, right? And we were on the bridge, and then he understood, oh, I need to actually talk to people, right? It need to be a story. And I think it's really great because once you learn these things, it's great. No one can take it away from you.
Very cool. Awesome. And Simon?
Well, first of all, congratulations for being here. I wish I learned this stuff when I was 18. And isn't it good for people who brought their kids with them? So well done to you for doing that. And a similar thing, create value, because a lot of, and Roger did this in his book, he said that a lot of people go and get a job and they say, well, what are you going to pay me to do the job? And it's a long way around. So what's the value you're bringing to that business? And I think it's great to be entrepreneur and start things, but you know what? It's dead easier to learn someone else's business rather than making mistakes in your own business. You can learn at someone else's time. And I think for people who are entrepreneurial, if you go and find an entrepreneur who's got a good business, got some structure, if you can be an apprentice, it's like Roger started this kind of whole program, that's a great way to come in and really learn what it's all about. Because they don't teach you this stuff in school or even university. Actually getting in practically doing it, and not just making the tea, but just being around the environment. And Peter mentioned about being around people who can stretch you and grow you better than you are, and you'll be amazed what you can achieve in a couple of years.
Very cool. So just before we get to the next question, I'm going to put myself in that category of being one of the people who are a parent who happens to really care about their kids' education. We have someone who's in the audience she doesn't know I was going to call her out on this. Can I get a microphone? Who was 18 but just turned 19, and that's my daughter Teresa. And Teresa's over here. So Simon was actually in Necker Island with us, where we actually had a whole bunch of families as well. And Teresa's actually up in Glasgow right now, where she's studying veterinary medicine. And on the front row here, Teresa, here's a microphone. I want can we give Teresa a round of applause? So Teresa, when did you turn 19?
On the 4th of September.
Which was?
Like a week ago.
A week ago, right. So just like in the last week. And you've obviously lived your whole life with me, and we've kind of like had education on the one hand, and then entrepreneurs connecting and so on. What would you say would be, for anyone here who's also a teenager right now, like what's one thing that you've learned, or one thing that you've kind of like seen as like a way to get clear on what you want to be, or what what advice would you give to them in terms of getting something started from your own experience?
Well, I would say definitely surround yourself with people that, as it was said earlier, push you up, but also people that inspire you. And you can kind of steal pieces from them and like what motivates them, and then branch off on that. I found myself surrounded by him. So I'm kind of taking bits that are kind of inspiring from what he does and how he's learned. Heard the Cambridge story like so many times. And yeah, definitely doing that and taking action and not being afraid to kind of take that first step and throw yourself into the unknown. Being like, what am I doing?
You also got really inspired by like the whole veterinary side, and that's now you're studying in Glasgow. And you know Anthony, right? Because we connected up together, and you've been helping out there as well. And he's videoing now as well. So like with someone like Anthony, what were you learning from someone like him, who's already like figured out ways to actually take the idea of loving animals, but then doing more than even just being a vet?
A lot of it was about not necessarily having to be there at all times. I used to kind of think, okay, well, being a vet means I'm always going to be around the animals, and I'm going to have to deal with the humans too, and kind of have to deal with that whole thing. But I've kind of seen from Anthony, like you can connect people, you can connect other vets, and they can kind of help each other, and everyone kind of boosts each other to create this kind of like ever upwards spiral, which is really kind of cool.
It's very awesome. Yeah. Very cool. Thank you very much, Teresa. Thank you. And let's take another question. Who else would like to ask our final question? We have a hand up right here, this lady here. So I'll come back down. It's Julie.
Hi, Julie Hobbing again. Second question of the day, because I love to take the opportunities, and it's a question to all of you. Every one of you have said around investing in your own learning, and I would imagine you've spent a lot of money doing that, as I have and continue to do. If you haven't got a lot of money to invest in your own learning, because some of the programs are a lot of money, where would you recommend people to get the best learning they can for the best value?
And could I add to that question? How do you even assess? Because like it's relative. You can say how much you spend on learning is relative to how much you got, or how much you spend on learning is relative to how much you make out of it, right? So how do you actually assess when it's good value in terms of how you're investing and not as well?
Well, I think we're really lucky today, because actually we have Google, and Google is the best teacher in the world. All I will say, if there's something you want to learn, you can find it on the web. So there is no excuse for anybody not to learn anymore. There really isn't. It really kind of does my head in when people say, well, I don't have the opportunities. Everyone has a smartphone, no matter how rich or no matter how poor. I drive to some of the most impoverished parts of the UK, and I fail to see anyone without a smartphone with internet connectivity. So you can either get it. So you can either get books, you can get Audible. So I've got a lot of clients that actually are dyslexic, and they had a really tough time at school, didn't really connect, didn't really take the information in. In this day and age, you can listen to books. So really, and that's so inexpensive, it is unreal. So it is really, there's so much out there, you've just got to have the desire to really want to make that change.
So I think, coming from the authentic leadership perspective, like I would say, be really clear on who you are, because because there is a lot of things, right? And there is a lot of information, but I think these days you need much more direction, which is relevant to you than just information. So I would start like, look, if we go from the, and we use a similar thing like talent, passion, purpose, right? My talent, I'm a supporter, so the way I create value is through people, through leading teams and, connecting. My passions are around education, transformation, leadership, right? My purpose is around like transforming society through new approaches to leadership and education. So this gives me direction, right? So it immediately says, okay, this is the type of information and the type of people, that are relevant to me. So I would start with that, be really clear on who you are and what you want. I always ask, okay, this is me. The next question I ask, okay, where do I want to be in 2 years, right? So now I have, okay, in 2 years, I want to learn how to create a global business. I'm really interested in trends that are going to completely innovate education and leadership. So this is the way where I'm going. I want to be there in 2 years. And then I'm looking, who are the best people for me, because I'm a supporter, so I prefer people over Google. And, sorry, no offense. Or what are the relevant resources? So for example, for me, I said, okay, through Roger, I got to know Peter Diamandis, who is, talking about abundance, and he's talking about future of education. I listened, I read his book, I saw, okay, this is something that really resonates, because we also launch leadership games. We are looking at gaming and how that can innovate leadership and the approaches. So, okay, so he is the person. Now, I can read a book, I can listen to his podcast, or I can go and, I'm going to be part of the program, and this depends on how much money you have available. But be really clear before, and look what you want, and then find the right people. You can be really, I think it's about having the resources and being resourceful, as Roger said at the beginning. So before, I have been learning, I invest a lot of money in my education, but a lot of that actually comes because I just, send email to people and get mentored even for free from some people, because I just ask for it, right? And some say yes, some say no, and it's okay. So I would just get clear and get into the action. And then what's important to me is I always look at the investment. So for me, it makes sense if I invest in Roger mentoring, and I've been mentored for 4 years, right, or I don't know how many, I always say, okay, I need to be using that, right? And if I'm not leveraging and I'm actually not taking whatever he's saying and turning it into action, turning it into flow and growing my company, then, there is probably a problem in me because I'm not able to leverage that, or maybe this is not the right thing. But I always look at how do I leverage that so it actually really turns into results.
I think that is probably one of the biggest things I want to share, is that a lot of people think of education as an expense, because at school they don't teach you to get a return on investment. But the most important thing is, you've heard, like our changemakers say, your biggest asset is yourself. You wouldn't ever assume to have an asset that you don't know the actual return on investment on. You know what the return on investment on. So if someone was to invest 10,000 in your education, or if you were to invest 10,000 in your own education, what return are you actually getting from that? One thing I learned a while back is if I didn't actually measure my own ability to turn any investment in education into something realizable, it means I wasn't doing a good job of actually working that out for myself. So whenever I go on any course, or even, and not just a course, but going on a trip somewhere, going to a conference and saying, well, what's the cost, not just of the trip, what's the cost of my time to be there, and then how much time am I going to give myself to get a return on investment? I tend to give myself 3 months. I'm going to measure, and I'm going to set myself a target. If this is going to cost me $20,000 to go on this program or to go to this place, then I'm going to make sure I'm making at least $60,000 within 3 months of that. And so if I'm there and I'm putting a plan together to make at least that return, then I've just proven to myself that I'm worth the investment to myself, which means next time I'm going to be happier paying $50,000 or $100,000. But if I haven't figured out what that is for myself and challenge myself to say I want to be more investable in terms of learning, which means that whenever I invest in my own learning, I get a better result, then I'm not actually, exactly as Radka says, I'm not doing the best with that education as well. Best example I saw of this, right, was when I went to Joe Polish is something called the 25K group. He even calls his group after how much it costs, right, 25,000. So he calls it the 25K group. And I remember the first time I went there, I had to travel all the way over to Phoenix, Arizona to be in it, and I went there, and I went there to actually figure out, well, how much could I actually make sure I make to, and I want to make sure I did it early on, and everything else can be just extra connections and learning. But as soon as I got there, he got up and first thing he said was, I want to tell you guys about this idea called elegant ideas. An elegant idea is an idea that's going to make you at least $250,000. It's really simple to execute. You just put it in place and you know your business will make an extra $250,000 off this. Your job while you're here is to come up with at least 10 elegant ideas. Because if you can't, and he has actually a list and page to put up 10 elegant ideas. Because if you can't be here for 2 days and you can't figure out at least 10 elegant ideas, you really shouldn't be here. It means you haven't figured out how to actually use the information here. So then I was like, all right, I'm going to do that. And of course, I came up with 10 ideas, but I'm thinking, wow, that's $2.5 million I'm going to make out of these 2 days. And he forced me to do it, but that's definitely worth the $25,000 coming in here. And so you've quantified that learning, which is always a way you can do that as you grow, which I think is like a super important discipline to get into for yourself, if not anything else as well. Kyron, you want to add something?
There's an old saying, if I was to sell you a penthouse in Chelsea for £60,000, would you be able to find the money? So the issue isn't the price, the issue is you seeing the value in it. And as Radka was saying, if you know why you're looking for it, then you'll be able to see the value. If you know the purpose of why you're looking for education, what you're trying to achieve through it. I think what you're talking about is seeing people out there, people offering, and you think that sounds great, but you don't quite know if it's you. And that's why you're not seeing the value in it.
Let's do this. We're going to give every one of our changemakers a chance to say one final thing to each of you, if they could share one thing. And then we're going to give them a very big round of applause for their amazing time up here on stage. So we're going to start with Simon. Simon, if you were to share one thing with everyone, your parting final words, what would you say?
It's linked to that last point, actually. And I would say that I think, as I would echo everything people have said, you can do a lot of stuff online for free. But you've got to work out what you want to learn. I mean, a lot of people who want to get into property, and they seem to be doing lots of courses, lots of training, gathering information, and information isn't what they need to change their mindset. So work out what you want to do and invest in that. And investment, I say investment is not a cost, because when you invest in yourself, you have that knowledge and information for life. You might need to keep up to date, but fundamentally you shift when you do training. And you can spend a long time learning stuff for free, or you can go and do some training and get a lot of information in a very short amount of time. Probably everything Roger's talking about this weekend, you could go and pick it up on the internet, but actually get it all condensed, presented in a very concise way for what I think is a very, very reasonable investment to be here, okay? So that's important. And also, you don't have to spend a lot of money to do programs. Just speaking for myself, we have different levels, and I think you could go and do some training, as Roger says, implement it, get some results, and then you can go and spend some of the money you make to go and get more training. So you don't have to jump in at the deep end straight away. And so, work out what you specifically need, go and find the best people you can to deliver that, whatever format works for you, whether that's live or mentoring or online, whatever it is, get the knowledge, apply it, then step up once you've got some results. And thank you for the opportunity to come and share.
Absolutely. All right.
How I'm going next. So, probably one of the people that said the biggest impact on me has been Jim Rohn. And I really love what Jim said. One of his favourite quotes is, work harder on yourself than you do on your business. And most people will always bitch and moan about the reflection they see. And the reality is, where we are in life is a reflection of us. If we want a different outcome, we need to change who we are.
I just want to share one thing with you that I got taught when I first started out in property, and it was taught to me by my property mentor, Steve McKnight. And it's really simple, and you should all write it down. And it simply goes like this: don't tell me what you can't do, tell me what you can do. And when you start applying that to all the problems we're all facing in our businesses, whatever it is, and you start thinking, okay, I can't do that, but what can I do, then you're going to come up with all the different solutions.
I thought I'd want to buy some time. It's even more challenging. I don't know. It's really challenging because I think there's no generic. It's not personalized. You're vague number 2, right? I don't know. Okay. So two things that I was thinking about. One thing I'm learning from my kids is playfulness and curiosity, and it's about I am the type of person that's, okay, I go right and I go right, right? And if I don't go right, I make everything possible to go right. And I'm learning to be, you know, when something happens, which is probably not pleasant or, you know, not something I planned for or, you know, surprising, I'm starting to like be more playful around that, right? And say, oh, that's interesting, this didn't work out. Oh, that's interesting, you know, what do I learn from that? So I think it's this like playfulness and curiosity, and I think the more I sort of have an intention, I have very clear intentions, but I am much more flexible on the way and to get there, and just saying, oh, maybe, you know, it's gonna take here or here. So I think that's probably one thing which I am learning, and
which is really important, because that's about not being so hard on yourself.
Yes.
I think a lot of education, if we had a strict teacher, is that we fear making mistakes or failures because we think we're going to get in trouble, and then we end up spending the rest of our lives having the toughest taskmaster of all, which is ourselves, basically beating ourselves up every time we get things going wrong, right? So that whole idea of curiosity, which means there's no wrong answer, is just kind of like learning new ways of doing it. I think that's a really important message as well.
And the second one, which is very interesting for me lately, is how and I'm experiencing that at Tyro. I like McKinsey. I like my jobs before. It's not that I didn't like them, but there is just a completely different experience when you love it. When you have that intersection, that you're really doing something aligned to your talent, that I love my job, I'm excited, and it's lined with a purpose. It's just the whole experience is completely different. So the second advice would be, you know, just really think how to make it align, because then even if it's not going to work out, at least you had a great time doing that, you know.
Can we please give our 4 changemakers a massive round of applause for their sharing? Thank you. And we have this all on this video, so we'll post this video as well, so you can come back and get a second round a little later. Thank you a lot, guys. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Awesome.